reflecting on the whole of the panel, I'm going to ask each of key leaders in research in this area to give their 5-minute précis around what the future of technology in Tikanga looks like in their particular wheelhouse, but also what are the touchstones of practical application for Māori going forward, and identify the layer, whether it be at marae, hapu, or iwi, or te iwi Māori. So 5 minutes on that, please.
Luckily, we had a couple of days to think about it, both with speaking with Tikanga Raraunga and then sitting and listening to these things over the last couple of days. I really like what Matua Dan said about turning it around. So I think that's going to be TIN 2, is going to be technology in Tikanga, and thinking about how technology can be used to support more communities with the things that they're doing. The two areas which I've been thinking about as being necessary is one is around thinking about Māori data sovereignty in relation to the environment and environmental data. We've done a lot of work with thinking about government data, responsibilities around administrative data, but I think the environmental space and how there's going to be increasing amounts of measuring and monitoring of the environment, both with sort of sensors but also via satellite. And how do we maintain control over that so that other people aren't going to be making decisions around what happens in that space? I think that's important. And the other area too, I was thinking about what Hotahi said in the meeting about these different aspects of, or how I was thinking about Māori data sovereignty around the collection of data and the sort of the ownership of data, but then the application. And the application part, the use of the data, is an area which needs sort of more attention. So really thinking about extending in the areas where Te Taka's working, and thinking about Indigenous data technology stacks. So lots of questions we get are now from communities that see what other ones are doing, and they're wanting to know, well, what do we use? What are the sorts of sets of technology that we can use to collect our data, protect our data, turn it into applications and use it, and having different ways in which that can happen, and helping them think through, like, what is the right scale for that sort of activity? You know, can you actually maintain this sort of infrastructure at the level of a marae or hapu, or does it need to sit at a region? You know, what is the best way of enabling that? Different sorts of infrastructures that might sit in one place or another. Kia ora. Done.
I'm going to keep everybody to time.
Well, Maui made me lose my train of thought, but I think my whakautu is we're all a bunch of hautatu, and when I listen to people's responses, like when people's pārtai to the presenters, what I'm hearing is they're trying to translate what they've heard into their own context, because everybody has a kaupapa, and they want to figure out, how can I take what I've just heard and make it useful for the stuff we're already trying to do. And so when I think about research, everybody's going to go off and do their research projects, and like with Kitty was talking about the little ripples that we make, and those ripples can reverberate out sometimes. But I do wonder for us how we can use research more strategically to turn those ripples into waves within our data ecosystem, because ripples are great, and I think we all do ripples, but I think at the moment in this exciting space that we're probably missing some opportunities for waves, and I suspect doing the mahi that we've done with Ngāti Tipa, that probably the waves are going to come from within our own data ecosystems, where we have that we're sort of creating a little bit, I would say a little bit organically, so not necessarily in a joined up way, but I think there's massive potential for those waves to be generated within our own, I don't know, for one of a better word, mana Māori motuhake ecosystem. I think we're only ever going to be relegated to ripples in the kāwanatanga system, because it is what it is, and you can get some good wins, but then you can go backwards real fast. But those lasting gains, I think, can be made in our own spaces. And I think research has a real critical role to play there, but we don't necessarily approach it in the right way. And we try to, but I think if we had a more connected strategy, that would have much more impact. So I don't know if that really answers. I'm not talking specifically about the sort of things I want to do, more about how we can be more strategic in our research approach to get some real critical gains here as we're all trying to do these things in our own spaces. Yeah, can I just say one thing? We have more advantages than other. I don't want to sort of be the old Māori or the leaders of the world, but I think we have some structural advantages that we don't use. We have one language. We have one Indigenous language. A lot of Indigenous peoples don't have that. We have a high population share in our country. A lot of Indigenous peoples don't have that. We are one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world. A lot of Indigenous peoples don't have that. So we have these advantages, these levers available to us that we can pull hard together with a bit more strategic connection. So, when I 1 minute.
You ignored one. But keep it quiet. To highlight, if you were to reflect on the last 2 days and give a précis around where, in your area, where research is heading to, what would that look like, and what would the touchstone of application in terms of relevance to community look like, whether it be at a hapu, marae, iwi, or other type of scaled benefit?
If I'm reflecting on the last couple of days, I think it's really promising to see the awareness that our researchers have and the importance of Māori data sovereignty. I think for us to be able to control our own destiny, our own destination, our own health, our own well-being, our own reo, we must be the controllers of that. And it feels to me like we're kind of getting there. For the particular area that I'm working in, there's kind of 2 key areas. We need to secure our own data, and we need to start building our own systems off that data. But it's the youth that we need to encourage in these fields, because they're the ones that will be shaping the future. And they kind of see things a little bit different than older people like myself. So encouraging our youth to believe in themselves, to believe in our own mātauranga, and then to utilise that for our own benefits. I appreciate that a lot of our youth grow up disconnected from their traditional home places, so it's encouraging them as well to seek out those opportunities to support their home places.
Kia ora. Bespoke question for each of you, starting with Tahu. If we leaned into our strengths as Indigenous people and created dynamic research collaborations in this space, what could it look like? Is Andrew Spall still here?
Aye.
Fantastic. What could it look like?
Well, I think someone mentioned imagination. I think it's only limited by our imagination. I think it could look like anything that we wanted it to be. I think there's some critical aspects to it. People. Sometimes in these data sovereignty conversations, it almost sounds like it's data sovereignty for sovereignty's sake. But actually, from a kaupapa perspective, it's really data sovereignty in service of a kaupapa, whether it's reo revitalisation, whether it's whānau well-being, whether it's strengthening our collective identity as a whānau or hapu. But critical to that is the people power that powers the system. So Te Kāhui Raraunga has done some amazing work with Hiara Pūkiko, which is their internships that they do for iwi. We've done a little bit at our hapu space, trying to grow our own team with no resources, just using research money. So, if we thought about all the bits that matter, infrastructure is something that Te Taka's mentioned, building our people, for want of a better word, capacity and capability, I think for me is key, because you can't build a system and not have the people there to drive it.
Can I just help you lean into your answer a bit more and ask, in terms of forging...
Please help me.
In terms of forging collaborations with others leaning into our strengths, where might we reach out to across the Indigenous network in this space to be globally, to be able to create further impact?
Yeah, we do that all the time through our network that already exists, mainly through the Global Indigenous Data Alliance, which actually came through friendship first, and then formal collaboration afterwards. And one of the examples now of that whanaungatanga and that manaakitanga is that, under executive orders, officials of the US are deleting websites and taking down data sets. And our American Indian colleagues have been distressed trying to download and save the data as it's disappearing before their very eyes in a political attempt to erase them. And so it's moments like these where you do lean in harder to your international relationships and thinking about what are the opportunities for them to benefit from some of the innovation that's happening here. So there's lots of opportunities for that sort of whanaungatanga to occur, whether it be to help, whether it be to innovate. They sort of, the basis for that already exists.
Thank you. For Te Taka, how do we link the research that's being done with the potential of young people to transform further where the research is going with Māori enterprise? Keep those links very real to grow the ecosystem.
I'm not really somebody who knows a lot about Māori enterprise, so it's difficult for me to answer that specific element. I want to build on something that Tahu mentioned about people say I think the key special thing that we have as Māori as people is our whanaungatanga. Because of our whanaungatanga, because of our ability to relate to each other in such a close and supportive way, we get a lot more things done. In terms of Māori businesses quite often work better than non-Māori businesses because of the relationships that Māori form. And so they're willing to do that extra mile or go that extra mile. In terms of where the ecosystem can take us, if we're looking at within our own particular iwi, hapu, marae, the relationships that we've got there are the strongest, in theory. The relationships that we've got there are the strongest, so that if we can build a base up there, then we've got a stronger base going forward. So, as well as our ability to innovate, it's our ability to connect with each other in ways that support each other that I believe will take us further, take us into further places than non-Māori, for example.
Can I lead into this question? Cool. Yeah. So one of the things I always thought when we were doing the Māori Data Sovereignty kaupapa was it was really going to be a placeholder in some ways for trying to make space so that we would be the ones that could make use of the data. And I think you're kind of seeing that as in Te Taka's talk around the technology. And so if we're not the ones creating the technology, we have to use technologies that other people are using. But that's the thing about creating some value from it was going to come from that. I think one of the things that we will have to grapple with though is if we sort of push down this track of Māori generating value from the data, is that the only way we can do it is by aggregating it as well. There will always be a local value from dealing with local data. But to generate something else that can have an enterprise value, it will need to be bigger. Like Te Huku's done. You know, they've while it's largely been around a lot of the up north, that you needed to have something, and then they were the first mover, and then now we've got a subscription to it, so we can use it as part of those. But it needs to be at a certain scale to allow that enterprise to work as well. So we're going to have to think about what's the right balance in terms of our local sovereignty and how we collectivise, whether that's at a Māori level or maybe a broader global Indigenous sort of space as well.
In terms of the whole data, tech and AI space, are there any glaring gaps in terms of where we're not building enough local capacity to lean further into any of those areas?
People.
Or
I mean, I
all the way around?
I don't know hardly any.
Yeah.
How many computer science?
Yeah, clearly people. There's this thing called the Puhoro STEM Academy, which is working to reverse that, but clearly having young people interested in the things that these technology can build is a gap. I'd also suggest there's a gap sometimes in some of our thinking in that we have a whole lot of data, we have a whole lot of manuscripts, recordings, but it's often locked away or stored away. And there's technology now to bring that alive in a way that our children can utilise real easily, as opposed to having to go back to some vault and flick through some pages. So I think there's a massive potential of knowledge that, in the right environments, in a Māori data sovereign system, could provide immense strength and identity and forward thinking to our youth. So I think we should be starting to, as we look at our resources, start challenging ourselves. How can we empower this information into our people?
Yeah, I agree, but I think there's also a real need for a strategic approach from iwi as well. We have a third of the child population here in the whole of the country is Māori. That's our future workforce. And yet there's so many tamariki who aren't being supported. There's lost opportunities for really strategic, I hate that word, investment, but nurturing in a very intentional way these future innovators. If we really want to have our own data sovereignty ecosystem, we need the people who can do that mahi, not just the computer scientists, which we are severely lacking in, but a whole range of skills, mātauranga, in the community, critical thinkers, dreamers, artists, creatives. They're all going to come from our tamariki. We ain't going to be around to do this. We're trying to do what we can. But we have already, a third of the tamariki population is Māori. They are ours. What are we doing? Kawanatanga isn't going to do it for us. What are we doing to take those tamariki forward to build and drive and extend those systems for the sort of flourishing that we all have been talking about for the last 2 days? So that's a whittle, I think.
It is a whittle because tech is the second largest trading sector for New Zealand and it's quickly growing. So we have to be in front of that opportunity. Did you want to comment, Maui? Because then
I said people.
No, that's it. Yeah, people was good.
I just expanded on people.
That's enough. So you've got maybe 4 minutes or so to forecast out where you believe research can and should be going. But I want you to think about, if there was no lid on the funding, what type of environment would you want to see for the most successful and optimum outcome of the applied use of research in your particular field? I hope there's not too much in there. You can break it down if you want.
There was a lot. So So if I go back to what I was saying at the beginning, thinking about the thing that I'm really interested in is how do we make use of, what's the technology now that supports the aspirations for Māori data sovereignty or greater control of data and things. The challenge is that we don't have, I would love for that to be happening with Māori data science, but we don't have those people around to be able to do that, and we can't make Tikanga do everything for all of our different projects. Essentially we're going to have to partner at least for a period until we get through the bit where we build that sort of capacity. So maybe that's where Andrew can help us, hook us up with some kind of smart people in different places. But we have to be in control of the dollars so that we can be in control of time and what the direction of the projects is.
Yeah, I mean, the way the research system at the moment is, and it's in flux, works is the money goes to the universities. The universities love to take their 112% overheads, and communities get plugged in as an end user, and a little bit of pūtea goes out the side. So I think if we want to do the sort of research that actually makes a difference for our communities, that model basically has to be inverted. And the questions and the kaupapa and the objectives start from community. Whether that community is hapu, whether it's marae, whether it's the iwi cheers forum or ahakoa, te horopaki, that is where the driving impetus for the research, that's the origins of it there. That's not what happens at the moment. So I think that's probably where the opportunity is. I think Māori researchers try to do it better, try to do community-driven research better than mainstream researchers, but there's a long way to go. I think that we're at the state, Kitty was talking about maturity, now in this technology space, where communities have a very clear idea of their kaupapa that they want to take forward, solve, grow, and they can articulate that. So the challenge is how do we fashion the research and the pūtea and the resources and the expertise to solve the kaupapa or to manaki the kaupapa that they put forward.
I think one of the issues with the university research system at the moment is what's important to the research institute is their name or their prestige or their reputation. And so decisions are made to support that kind of thinking and that kind of research. Whereas in supporting what Tahu is saying is really as Māori, as a Māori researcher, it's not so much what kind of journal or what kind of publication gets made, it's what kind of impact can your research have on your hapu, on your iwi, and how can you do that and still kind of survive in this kind of system? So yeah, I agree, maybe the research model should be turned around a bit so that we are, as Māori researchers, able to support more Māori research. In terms of the work that I do specifically with real technologies, we don't really have the capacity to build some of those language models at the moment. But if the language models that have been built overseas are open source language models, then I think we are starting to get the capacity to be able to learn, to be able to build them in the future. So I think the future for Māori researchers in terms of reo and technology is really exciting because we are going to be able to drive that. It's not going to be products that a larger international company is going to dump on us. It's going to be products that we ourselves define and build, and they obviously will work for us. So how do we shift the thinking long-term in research? How do we strategize so that funding can be supporting really the research that we want to do? But then the other thing too is the research that I'm particularly interested in is kind of a little bit different to the research that Tahi's interested in, and it's kind of a little bit different to the research that Maori is interested in. And I think that's really good, because if we were all in the same room doing exactly the same thing, then only one thing would be solved. But we need issues overcome and issues solved in a whole bunch of different areas, and we don't, got to try not to be depressed by the whole state, but this is the area that I'm going to focus on, and then I can concentrate my efforts there, and if this is the area someone else can concentrate, and this is the area that someone else can concentrate, and then when collectively we can combine those efforts. Koera te horei whakamongo tātou, I think.
Well, on that, a slight quick fire question for each of you, starting with you, Tikanga. What's sparking your curiosity in terms of research questions at the moment?
Yeah, so me pewhia tērā AI I kororo I roto I te mita me te nuance o te reo manipoto. Koera te papa.
Tēnā tautoko tērā. Haere tōne.
I think mine goes back to the work that we've been doing with our whānau from Ngāti Tipa, which is what is the power of whakapapa when we can build and control our own whakapapa-centric data systems. Where will that take us in the future for our own collective and whānau flourishing? I don't know where it's going to take us, but I think the journey's an exciting one.
Kia ora.
I haven't got an answer for that. I don't think I ever have a research question. I would just have sort of like directions and kind of point that way and see what happens. And at the end of the project, I'll make up what the question was. But, I already talked about the things I think are important. But just different ways in which we can empower, and ensure that communities benefit from the data. So, at the moment, there's a whole thing about collecting the data, but once you've got it, how do you generate value from it? What are the things you need in place for that to take place? And some of those things are the technology ones, and some of them are the people ones, but some of them are going to be kind of legal structures and other things. So, like I said, no te roro, nāku te roro, kōra tiwi.
Okay, the last question is your 2 minute or so oha to everyone that's here, your wrap up. We'll start with Tahu.
My wrap-up. Well, can I just do a series of hashtags? Hashtag, this is the one to all those who hold our data. Hashtag give it back. That sounds familiar, I might have said that one. This is for us. Hashtag give it a go. I think give it a go is a good one. And I want one for myself. Hashtag have a rest. Nothing very deep, but there you go, it's the end of the day. Thank you, Nanaya. You're a mean facilitator too. I'm a bit scared of you as a facilitator.
And we'll go to Te Taka and then end with Maui.
I just want to say, nōku te honori. It's been my honour actually to be a part of this team, Tikanga, and technology. I've learned a whole lot of things that I never would have known about strategy and involvement and a whole bunch of things. So, nōku te honori, tēnā koutou. I roto hoki I nei rā I rua. It's good catching up with a whole bunch of friends face to face as opposed to rorohi konei nō reira. Again, nōku te honori, tēnā koutou. It's just been a real pleasure being here, sharing, listening. Some of you guys are doing some really cool work, and by listening to some of the responses, you can see that work's getting lots of value. Nō reira, tēnā koutou.
So, e kororu hai tāpiri atu. Just want to say thank you to the Te Kotai research team in particular for doing all the hosting and organising and things, particularly Natalie, who organised pretty much all of it. Thank you.